Here.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Present.
Councilmember Alvarez, Councilmember Ruano,
Present.
Vice Mayor Collazo,
Present.
Mayor Sid.
Present.
Mayor, you have quorum.
Let's all rise for the prayer being led by our clerk, Gina Nguanzo. But before we get to our prayers, I know Councilman Alvarez is not here tonight. One of his teachers, who is a close friend of our entire community, is the sister of Mark Rodriguez, who's prayed in our Chamber of Poor, passed away this past week. So I know that the entire Bulldog family is in mourning. So I know Councilman Alvarez won't be with us, but please keep the entire Rodriguez and Eunice, Jennifer Eunice was her name, in our prayers, please. Madam Clerk.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity that you always give us to gather with friends, with colleagues, with neighbors. And please give us strength, courage, and enlighten us for a good meeting. Amen.
Amen. Let's remain standing for the pledge led by Councilwoman Marilyn Ruano. You may be seated. There are no special presentations today. Order of business, deferrals, additions, deletions. Councils, are there any deferrals, additions, deletions?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to defer 11C. During the last workshop, we had a conversation about bringing back options with specific dollar amounts. I received the spreadsheet from staff earlier today, so I need some additional time to work with staff to make sure that that's in the format that we discussed. So I'd like to defer that until the next council meeting.
Got it. Deferrals, additions, deletions. There's only one deferring item 11C. Is there anything else, Council?
Just a point of order, Mayor. Does that then have an impact on the budget as it's being presented? Budget currently being presented takes into assumption a franchise fee of 6%.
Councilman Fernandez.
I think so. We're at first reading of the budget. I think we would discuss all of the aspects of the budget not related to the special bucket being funded by the franchise fee, and then we would tackle that during the next council meeting.
Point of clarification. So I guess what you're saying is that next Tuesday we'll consider this item, and then at the that would be first reading if it passes, and then obviously second reading would be at the second budget hearing.
Correct. First reading of 11C would be at the regularly scheduled council meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah. So Councilman or Vice Mayor Collazo would happen before the end of the budget year. So I guess there wouldn't really be an impact.
Thank you. Does that clarify it, Vice Mayor? Just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Any motions on the order of business? Wait, you know what? I'm going to take out item 10B, want just some clarification on the record. So I'm going to remove 10B from the consent calendar. Any motions on the order of business?
I'll move to adopt the order of business as amended.
Second.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We're on to public comments. Madam Clerk.
Good evening. All comments and questions from the attending public shall be directed to the mayor in a courteous tone. To ensure the orderly conduct and efficiency of this meeting, public comments shall be limited to 3 minutes maximum per person. No clapping, applauding, heckling, verbal outbursts in support of or in opposition to a speaker or his or her remarks shall be permitted. Should a member of the attending audience become unruly or behave in any manner that disrupts the orderly and efficient conduct of this meeting, such person will be asked to leave the meeting. And as a courtesy to others, all electronic devices must be set to silent mode to avoid disruption of the proceedings. In accordance with the Americans with Disability Act of 1990, persons needing special accommodations to participate always should call Town Hall by 5 p.m. no later than 2 days prior to the meeting. And for public comments, if anyone in council chambers wants to participate in this section of the meeting, which is public comments, please just state your name and address for the record and approach the podium. You would have 3 minutes. From what I see, we only have 4 participants, which were all staff members. So I don't see any public comments virtually.
So, Madam Clerk, there are no public comments at this moment.
Nope.
Got it. Going once, going twice. Public comments is closed. We're moving on to the consent calendar. The item that I pulled was 10B, was the police fencing item. Just want a hard time frame on, like a real time frame on installation. I don't want this item to get lost again in some bureaucratic purgatory that we all are very familiar with, that we've had some issues with in the past. This is something the council, that our police officers asked for, and we saw in the survey, they all asked for this. The council, all of us up here obliged and funded that, so I want hard time frame on installation.
Yeah, the reason that it's even on this agenda is because we are doing everything possible to expedite this, all right? If not, we could have just waited. We don't even want to wait an extra week. Once this is awarded tonight, the vendor that is being recommended is ready to apply for permits. To the best of my understanding, the only permits required will be from the town of Miami Lakes. So we'll be able to, I told him that what I'm hoping and expecting is that there's going to be a shovel in the ground before the end of this month. So through the permit process, even if they have to wait on materials, start doing the concrete work that they have to do for the tracks, start getting things done. So that is my direction to the procurement and the facilities staff, and to the in turn to the vendor. Get this going, and that's why it's on your agenda tonight as opposed to waiting. We don't even want to wait an extra week.
To reiterate it one more time, what was the time frame again?
We expect this will be awarded tonight. We'll have the vendor apply for permits as ASAP, and we are hoping that there's at least a shovel in the ground before the end of the month.
Got it.
For at least the concrete work, the prep work, whatever, even if they're obviously, challenged by everything, the same challenges that every vendor is challenged with the supply chain. So even if they have to wait on the aluminum and things of that nature, we hope that they can get the prep work done and get going before the end of September.
Thank you. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Discussion, council, on this item. Councilman Ruano.
I just had a question as to the aesthetics of the aluminum picket fence. Do we have a picture of it? What color is it going to be?
It's going to be black. If you actually look out here, it's going to be, and I'm not saying identical, but it's going to be very similar to the entry gates for the 2 apartment buildings right out here on Main Street.
Okay.
Since it's exterior of this building, we actually even had to get the blessing of the grants, right? Because they have refusal rights for architectural control over the exterior. So they're on board. It's going to be solid aluminum, black, similar to some of these decorative entry gates that you'll see right out here.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Any further discussion, council?
One question.
Councilman Dieguez.
Thank you. And Mr. Manager, as I was reading through the memo, it seems as if the prior vendor was not able to do the electrical work. Do I have that correct?
Correct. We didn't want to have multiple vendors. The vendor that was selected said, you guys handle the electrical work. And what we end up with when we have those scenarios is pointing fingers, right? If something goes wrong, that's not working, the electrical is the problem, no, the fence is the problem. So we wanted one vendor to take charge and be responsible for the electrical work, the actual prep work for the site, the installation of the fencing, everything, so that there's no finger pointing.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because, I would have figured we would have handled this at the awarding stage or earlier, that we would have identified we wanted one vendor. So I wanted to see what happened there as far as what had changed. So did we realize after the fact that we wanted to have one vendor, or was that something that arose later?
Well, it was, I can have, Natalie, if you can come up and speak a little bit about the fencing, exactly what was it, the series of events, because It was a little bit, there's several series. If you come up here.
Well, remember that it's that we have to get it on the record.
You got to procure another microphone for, it's another one for the list.
Come and speak for mine.
Work. That it could not, they could not perform the electrical work after the fact.
Okay, no, and is that, so it was realized after the fact that they couldn't perform the electrical work. Was that one of our stated requirements?
Yes,
Okay, and they had represented at the time that they were able to do it?
yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, I'll leave it at that, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dieguez. Any further discussion on this, council? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes. We're on to the consent calendar. Any motions on the consent calendar?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Discussion, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. We're on to item 11A. Mr. Attorney.
An ordinance of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, adopting the village rate of the town for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022, pursuant to Section 200.065 Florida statutes, providing for directions to tax collector, providing for notice, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Any motion on the table, council?
Mayor, I need to read a budget statement into the record.
Proceed.
The proposed millage rate for the Town of Miami Lakes fiscal year 2021-22 is 2.3127. The rate is the same as the current year. The gross taxable value for operating purposes is $3,767,371,566. The proposed millage rate will generate $8,277,160 in ad valorem revenue, budgeted at 95% collection rate. The proposed millage rate of 2.3127 is 4.33% above the rollback rate of 2.2168.
Thank you. Council, any motion on the table?
I'll move the ordinance.
Second.
Discussion, council, any discussion? Council, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ordinance in first reading, item 11A. Councilmember Dieguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Collazo.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item 11A.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we're on to item 11B.
An ordinance of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, approving and adopting the budget for the Town of Miami Lakes for fiscal year 2021-2022, providing for expenditure of funds, providing for amendments, providing for carryover of funds, providing for the incorporation of the adopted capital budget as the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Any motion on the table, council, to get into discussion?
For purposes of discussion, I'll move the item.
Second.
Discussion to Councilman Dieguez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just had some questions that I wanted to get clarification on the budget as proposed. One of those is, and I apologize if I missed it, but how much in unassigned reserves do we have budgeted for in this operating budget?
It's in here. It ends up being 15. Give me a moment.
Or to be more specific, unassigned fund balance.
The current fund balance is $893,672 million, and it meets the requirement, and it's at 15.14%.
Okay, but is there any unallocated fund balance there that is above and beyond what is required to be held back in reserves?
Yeah, 0.14%.
Okay, okay. And what does that mean in dollar terms? If you prefer to email me later, unless one of my colleagues wants the answer as well, you know, I'll do that so you don't have to do the math
That's
right
easy
now.
math, man. They got it. Melissa said give her 10 seconds. You got any other questions in the meantime? Because if you do, you could ask those. And
Yeah, and for the benefit of my colleagues, earlier today, I asked the manager regarding the way that they were distributing what would be, if it passed, the franchise fee surplus and how it would be allocated. We did identify that there was an error in the memorandum where it stated that there was more money being allocated for tree removal than tree planting. Turns out it was that even though the amounts were correct, those two items should have been switched. The top number, or the more funded item, was for tree planting, not for tree removal. So we cleared that up, although I'm still waiting to get a little more detail as far as where we're going to be planting and also where we're going to be removing some of those trees and how that was put together. And I did have, excuse me, I did have also a question that at the time I was not able to ask the Public Works Director, remember, about whether or not we have identified already as part of that amount of the surplus allocated for road improvements and repairs, how much of, or which projects it would be geared toward. I don't know if the Public Works Director is able to come up and let us know if they've already put together this list of projects. Unless you have the answer first to the initial question.
No, I mean, one of your colleagues had worked with the Public Works Director late last week and asked for that list. That list was provided. I think that's one of the things that Councilmember Fernandez wanted to work with the Public Works Director, dealing with the FPL franchise fee item, the list of sidewalks and road repairs and so forth. So that list was compiled, and that's the list that we sent to him because he asked for it earlier today.
Okay, perfect. And actually, now that you may have sent that to me based on our conversation today, is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I'll forward it to the entire council after tonight.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have the math number, by the way, in the meantime? Almost? Okay, so I'll move on then to the next question. As part of the cost of living adjustment that is being sought in this budget year, have we done an analysis to see where our salaries are comparable to other cities of similar size?
I mean, we'd have to look at it position by position, right? So we took a general idea. We have a general idea of where we sit, but every position may be different, right? So, for instance, engineers may be different than park recreation. So that's an analysis that you can't really do globally as an entire staff. You'd have to do it position by position. So we may be very competitive in some positions, but be at a competitive disadvantage in some other ones.
I would request, because again, we were really talking about 31 staff positions, give or take. So if I can get that before the next budget hearing, that would be much appreciated, just to see where we're at. Because again, if the goal is to make sure that we're being competitive with those cities, I would just like to see something that then I can, turn around and show people, like, we do need to do this to be competitive.
We'll prepare that for the entire council and have it to you before the next council, or the second reading.
Thank you.
Councilman Dieguez, if you don't mind, if I get a pine on that. I think one of the challenges is finding a city that is similar to us in terms of what we expect and our work product, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. If we were to compare, the city of Weston, which we utilize their model to build our town, their town manager gets paid a lot of money, actually a lot more than our town manager. But that town manager literally manages every department, every single contract, because they only have like 4 employees. It's a real contract city. We've turned into more of a hybrid. So it's hard for us to compare apples to apples with a lot of the cities that we try to compare ourselves with, right? That have a lot of Hialeah Gardens, if you compare them, their salaries are a lot lower than ours, yet their turnover rate is a lot lower than ours as well. You know what I mean? So it's really difficult to navigate some of that stuff in my personal perspective since I've been up here. So, that's, when I look at that list, and then I always end up looking at those municipalities. Like, one of the benefits that we give that I don't know anybody else, summer Fridays, right? That is unheard of, I think, in our reality. That's a great thing for our staff. They utilize it. They love it. Every staffer I've talked to loves it. But that's a benefit that has to get calculated in that, because I don't know any other city that does that. So how do you compare that apples to apples where we do some of the things that other cities don't, and we don't have collective bargaining? You know what I mean? There's so many different aspects. But I gave that example of the manager in Weston, because I'm sure you could hear, but the manager in Weston, that guy manages an entire city, real manage, in terms of there's no deputy, there's no, you're managing contracts yourself, you know what I mean? You don't have 1,000 staffers, so that it's very difficult to make those comparisons. So I just wanted to add that in there, and we do other things like the summer Fridays, which I don't know anybody else that does that. So
Yeah,
I think those comparisons should be in there as well. So
I think that's an excellent point and a good perspective. And obviously, again, some cities also have different demographics, right? Like, maybe we might share some commonality with Palmetto Bay in some respects, but then in others we don't. Like, they're primarily more residential, whereas we have a fairly even split between commercial and residential and our tax base and all that. And as a result, we might have more of a workload on certain positions than others. So I understand that. I still would like to see some kind of a list. Obviously, I'll do my homework as well and make that analysis on my own. But I think you raise a very fair point, that as we make that decision, myself included, I have to factor in all those variables.
No, I just wanted to add that food for thought. So I know
Appreciate
you
it.
had several other points, so I didn't want to take the floor from you.
No worries. I don't take it personal.
Council member, I have one of the first questions you asked. The surplus undesignated fund balance is $26,232.
Got it. Okay.
That's the .14.
Understood. Perfect. Okay. And I was wondering if you could provide some perspective on why when I look at the table of the grant awards that we've received, and I'm not knocking our grants administrator. She does an excellent job, and I know that she's even helped out some nonprofits that have been directed her way through us. But I did notice that our grant monies are down year over year. I didn't know if the administration had a position on why that is.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a reaction to the council. I know there's been some concern from the council with having some of our monies that could be available for certain things like sidewalks or street lights and so forth. And we've used some of that and designated it as the town match for certain grant applications. So that's always been, there's a few different grant opportunities recently that we have applied for without designating a town match, and that harms our position. In other words, it makes our application less lucrative. I think probably, I'm not sure what page you're looking at or where you're reviewing, but also grants sometimes are a function of state appropriations. So those are probably considered in the list that you're looking at, I'm not sure. But the state appropriations thankfully we were able to get $440,000 in this last session, but the previous 2 sessions, we did not get any state appropriation for any town project. So those may be some of the factors, but I'll take a deep dive into the grants and give you a better understanding and prepare that for you and send it to you of what the reasons are for the downturn in grants.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and I think that's a fair point as well. But I just wanted to ask the question just to, see if there may have been something else, and that was a factor there or not. And I think you identified one of them perhaps with respect to the matching issue.
Yeah, some grant opportunities require a match. Some of them don't require it, but it enhances your application. So those are the ones that we've been hurt by.
Understood. And I'll send you separately where I found that chart, but, you know, it was just, it's here in the budget memorandum somewhere. With that said, let me move on. The streetlights project, there's a reference here in the budget memorandum to a streetlights project, but I'm not sure that it was really defined what that was. I just wanted to confirm what that is, if that's part of our street light replacement program or some other project.
Yeah, this council made a mid-year adjustment that provided specifically $100,000 for streetlights. Public Works did a great job, worked with a consultant, and from the beginning, we knew that the $100,000 was probably not going to be enough. So Public Works worked with a consultant, developed the design for a series, some of the worst areas of the town that really needed new streetlights. And the total project is going to be much more than the $100,000. So what we did, one of the adjustments that occurred since the second budget workshop is the state of Florida made some revenue projection adjustments. Two of the items was the half-cent sales tax and the revenue sharing. Both of those revenue estimates or projections actually got bumped higher. That gave us an additional $212,000 in added revenue. In there, what we did, based on what we understand is the one of the greatest policy priorities for this council is infrastructure. We allocated $137,000 towards the streetlight project, so we can complete the funding, so make sure we can have the construction money for that streetlight project. We put $50,000 towards new sidewalk replacement and $26,000 towards additional road maintenance budget. So that's where we allocated that added revenue that we were notified of since the last budget workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And regarding the franchise fee surplus, that 900,000 figure, is that based on an additional 3%, or is that calculated as anything above 1.275? Just for context, I'm asking because in the restrictive ordinance that we had, if I recall correctly, it basically was trying to say any amount over 1.275 would be dedicated toward the infrastructure line item for the surplus.
Right. What we did is the projection for the 3% that we currently have, we just essentially doubled it, right? Remember what a budget is. A budget's never exact down to the penny. At the end of the year, it's what you thought it was. It's a projection, right? So we doubled it. Since FPL in their FPNL franchise ordinance requires notice. In other words, if this council is to pass this item, let's say by October, we have to give them minimum 60-day notice before it goes into effect. So what we did is we took the $1.2 million that would be a full year projection, and we took 3/4 of it, assuming that we'll probably start being able to bill in January. So we took a conservative approach, and we figured from January on, if this takes place, we'll be able to collect as of January. That's why the 900 is 3/4 of the 1.2.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And with that, I rest.
Any further discussion, council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. A quick question. The low-income senior exemption that we spoke about, did that make its way into here?
Melissa no, that's not in here. So if that's I don't believe that you ever took action on it, if I'm not mistaken, but it's not in here. If you, we did provide, I think that the action that you took was for us to do the calculations, and we provided you that info. I believe that the number was $40-some-odd thousand, if I'm not mistaken, in rebate for that revenue, ad valorem revenue. But that's not calculated in here. If that's an action that you take, then we can provide it. Either you can take that action tonight and we'll bring it back to you for second reading, or you can make that amendment on the fly at the second reading.
What's customary?
What's that?
So the question is the the low-income senior exemption that I had spoken about the last time didn't make it on here, so I don't know.
This is an ordinance first reading. You can make a motion.
To amend, yeah.
To,
Yeah, you
to
can make a
amend it.
motion to amend the ordinance.
All right, so I would like to make well, I guess an amendment, no? Like to make
Yes.
an amendment that we include the low-income senior exemption rebate as part of the presented budget, and the funds would come from the funds that were allocated, would come from a portion of the funds that were allocated for the park reservation system.
I'll second the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment, council. Discussion on the amendment, council. Seeing none. I do just want to say I spoke about this at the last meeting that we had. I appreciated Councilman Fernandez doing his homework on this. I'm in favor of it, specifically not only saving our low-income seniors, but finding savings from the reservation system to make it happen. So I'm in full support. Council, any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. The ordinance has been amended. Anything else, Councilman Fernandez?
That's all for me.
Any further discussion, council? Any further discussion on the ordinance as amended? I see Vice Mayor, then Councilman Rodriguez. No, the Vice Mayor.
I don't have anything to add, but I just want to comment with regards to what Councilman Diego's was bringing forward on the reason that we have great staff and some of the reasons that we retain great staff. I think there's an ancillary benefit that a lot of our staff members enjoy living here. So we probably don't have the turnover that a lot of other communities have. I think the mayor cited that. But Councilman Dieguez, I think one of the things that you can do is, if you're looking into that issue of performance bonuses or seeing how we stack up to other communities, is maybe have a meeting with the manager and find out on exit, when you have exit interviews with your people, how many are leaving due to maybe salaries. Are salaries the reason that we're losing staff? And that might give you a good indicator of where people's heads at, because sometimes people just don't stay here because of the money. And a lot of it may be the work environment. I think the mayor wanted to point out that, yeah, they have summer Fridays off. That's an anomaly that my employees don't get to benefit from, but I'm in a completely different marketplace, right? I'm in healthcare, and healthcare doesn't take days off sometimes. So, but there's an ancillary benefit of also living where you work, and I think that brings a certain value that maybe is not reflected in salaries. So I would encourage you, maybe have a meeting with the manager and see how many upon exit are leaving because of low wages, and maybe that can give us a bit of perspective on what's happening with at least how people are being compensated here.
Any further discussion, Councilman Dieguez?
Really quick, just to make sure that this doesn't get confused on social media or elsewhere, even though we are likely going to be passing the budget on first reading, which is based on a 6% franchise fee, as Councilman Fernandez pointed out, we are deferring the specific ordinance as to the franchise fee to the next council meeting, which will be the following week. So just because it's passing today does not mean it's on its way to final passage. I just want to make sure that we don't have any disinformation floating around out there.
Thank you, Councilman Dieguez. And I have some points, a couple of motions I'm going to make as well. This year, I definitely will not be able to support the COLA increase this year. It's pretty big, but I'm going to go deeper into the explanation as to why I support an alternative. When we passed one a year and a half ago, it went into effect April 1st, 2020. I was in full favor of it. By us not taking action on summer Friday, like the council has embraced summer Fridays, because that's a policy that we could have changed if we didn't like. So those are real incentives we give to our employees. But I think when I started doing some of the math, the 124 this year plus the 46 we did a year and a half ago, it equals close to $170,000. Price that out 10 years, that's $1.7 million in recurring expenses. But I also think a COLA is not enough for those who go above and beyond. There are people here that are high performers. They deserve more, and I would like to see the vast majority of the 124 go into the bonus program. where I think it's a win-win. It ensures that we don't have long-term recurring expenses, but at the same time, it gives folks, specifically those that go above and beyond, and I don't want to point them out because I don't want other staffers to feel bad or anything, but there are people that show up on the weekends here and don't get compensated. There are people because they love their jobs. There are other folks that say, listen, you get paid 9 to 5. If you want to leave at 5 o'clock on the dot, amen, that's on you. But there are folks that stay here 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I just not a big fan, never have been of COLAs. I've always been a huge proponent of performance pay. I'm happy that it's going forward. So the COLA I won't be supporting, but I'm going to be making a motion to, in effect, I hope get some support, that to utilize the vast majority of the 124, maybe 75% of the 124 to pump into the bonus program, where I think people should get a bigger chunk of money for their performance instead of a small COLA that becomes a large, long-term becomes a large recurring expense. So I think it's, my opinion, it's a win-win. You're really thanking those that go above and beyond with a real bonus, but at the same time, we're ensuring that long term. I mean, just a 10-year view, it equates to $1.7 million. Just the one COLA that we approved a year and a half ago, and then the COLA that we would be approving today. So personally, I just think it's a win-win where we can really, really thank the folks that go above and beyond, because I just don't think. And I understand the perspective that a lot of folks say, oh no, but it's meant for, the cost of living, it's meant for this. Look, the reality is that there are folks that really, really bust their behinds in our organization. They make us look good, they really work hard, and they deserve a little bit more and a real bonus. So I'm gonna make a motion out of the 124 to move, actually, I'll move the entire 124 into the bonus program.
I'll second it.
Discussion, council, vice mayor.
I am supportive of the idea. I just wanted to make sure that, are we eliminating the COLA altogether?
Yes.
And is the template that the manager proposed going to be the vehicle, or would those numbers now need to be adjusted as well? Below average, just trying to get clarity on that.
Yeah, the percentages would obviously have to be adjusted because 1% is not, if we're putting the full 124 into performance-based bonus, it's definitely going to be higher percentages. If we add that to the 45 that we have now allocated towards the merit. And, just if you don't mind.
Well, hold on a second
okay,
before,
sorry.
because I do have a question that may help illustrate this for me a little bit more. On the performances during the evaluations, did anybody score below average?
We have not completed them yet.
Historically, has anybody scored below average?
I'd have to check with human resources, but I don't know. I'm estimating that there's going to be an average. That's why the amount of 45,000 is a 1%. So there's going to be a balance of zeros, 0.5s, 1%, and 1.5%. The number that we submitted in the budget proposal is an average globally across the entire staff of a 1%. So if you take the 2.8 that we were proposing as a COLA and 1%, so the middle of the road is going to end up being a 3.8 is what would end up having, that's what would happen. And it would all be performance-based. There'd be no compounding. And my gut feeling is that staff, as appreciative as they would be for any type of pay adjustment, they would much more prefer to have a COLA instead of the bonus. And the blend that we recommended, we believe is really supported by staff, a full bonus that goes away a year from now. It vanishes. There's no compounding. It just goes away. I believe they would be appreciative of any kind of pay adjustment, but they would much more prefer a COLA versus a bonus.
I'd like to see what comes back with the new formula that's being proposed, just like the franchise fee. I mean, we have a second stab at this, just to see how the breakdown is, and historically over who's underperformed and who's been exceptional, to see what the breakdown would actually be with our staff members. But I think it's worth a shot. Take a look at it.
Yeah, look, a couple other things we could look at, Vice Mayor, is to reward longevity, I mean, one of the things where you can even look at, except people that have crazy amounts of comp hours, you know what I mean, that are, I'm telling you, there's people that are here on the weekends, that I was just giving that example, you know what I mean, there's people that are here late at night, you know, all the time, going above and, so I just think it's a win-win from our perspective as the folks that hold the purse strings, they're getting a bigger piece of money, a bigger chunk of change for their families, but at the same time, we're not long-term, we're not being put in a situation, you know, we're just the last two COLAs alone, and I agree with you, let's see how it looks, but just this one and the one before, it's $1.7 million, you know what I mean, on a 10-year outlook, and that's just something I think it's a good middle ground, but I agree with you, it will, look, if ultimately the council doesn't want to do it, come the next go around, that's fine. I personally, and I've always been consistent on this, and it's something I worked on with Manager Ray back then, and that's why it came up in an ordinance in the past, was I've always believed in performance bonuses instead of the COLA process. It's a win-win. Folks that deserve it get a bigger chunk of change, and I get it. The manager gets his reviews because everybody across the board is going to be like, yeah, give me a COLA, you know what I mean? And because not everybody is going to go above and beyond in an organization, you know, so I just wanted to make it, look, and the reality is there's other folks out there that we're not rewarding, you know, we have contractors that do an amazing job, we have our town attorneys that put in a lot of work, they're the cheapest town attorneys around, and they're not going to get a COLA, just being real, or a performance bonus, so just wanted to put that on the record, but I do agree with you, let's see what staff comes back with, but there's other aspects like longevity, comp hours, you know what I mean, that I think folks that have been loyal to the organization as well, I think that means a lot. So
I'm glad you pointed out that as clarification, because I think that gives you some flexibility, manager, to create a structure where these dollars can remunerate the best of the best, right, and not necessarily damage the morale of the organization, because I think you wear your heart on your sleeves. I can tell from the expression on your face you're not happy with this. But at the same time, I think it gives you great opportunity to reward the best of the best and make sure that you have competition. I think competition makes a great environment. And I think when people know that they're going to be rewarded and remunerated for better performance, I think we get the most out of our organization. But again, you know, sometimes I've been wrong, right? I compare this to my life experiences in healthcare, and it's a completely different, completely different animal. That's why I urge Councilman Dieguez, and maybe myself to do some fact finding with the manager as well. You know, how many employees are we leaving because they're paying better salaries at city X, Y, or Z? You know, how many employees are leaving or may leave because of the COLA, you know, and I'm going to have some one-to-ones on you, but I think it merits a look and merits the opportunity to see how we can make that a performance-based program.
Yeah, and I guess you're 100% right, and my wife tells me, you know, not to be so overt with my emotions, but you know, I'm an advocate for our residents, and I is one. And I'm an advocate for our staff because that's the way I was brought up organizationally, right? I am responsible for all of those folks that work for this town, right? They are like my children. So I'm an advocate for them, and I love them as if they were my children. So if we were to do a survey and ask the staff, I am sure that it'd be 100 to 0%. COLA versus bonus. What I proposed is a balance. It awards, it kind of keeps everybody up with inflation. And I just want to present a scenario. If somebody walks through the door and we hire them at $20,000, just some fictitious number, and they work here for 20 years and all they get throughout their entire career are bonuses, they're going to, 20 years from now, they're going to have a $20,000 salary and a bonus every year. So that's the purpose of the COLA. It allows that $20,000 to be adjusted annually for the rate of inflation, allows them to keep up with the marketplace, and you use the bonus as the sweetener, the icing on the cake, to reward those who go above and beyond. I believe that the hybrid model that we proposed is the most beneficial to our staff. It's the most beneficial to our residents, because obviously we want to have a staff that is enthused, that is happy, that is, ready and willing to go above and beyond. So the staff will be satisfied and happy. The residents will really reap the benefits, and that's why we proposed it.
Any further discussion on this, Council?
Yes,
Councilman Ron,
well,
and
I
then
see my
Councilman
colleague,
Days.
Councilwoman Rana wants to speak, so, and I already have my turn.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this particular item, I have to agree with the manager. I think that the COLA is something that is not, it has nothing to do with merit. It has to do with leveling the playing field, and we talk about trying to retain employees. We talk about not losing them to other cities. Keeping their salaries stagnant and dependent on a bonus doesn't really help us in that department. That being said, I was looking through the evaluation sheet, and a lot of the things on the evaluation sheet that I'm looking at are just, they're just things that you need to have to keep your job. They don't really make you an excellent employee. It's just attendance that you need to be here because that makes you employed. So I think that a lot of times in these evaluations, my fear is that too many employees will get a high rating in these evaluations, and too many employees will get bonuses simply for doing their job. And the bonus for doing your job is that you're still employed, and we don't replace you with someone else. So to me, I'd almost rather see something that's even more exciting, right? Like bonuses maybe to just a select, a high tier of staff members. We have a lot of great staff members. So picking and choosing is going to be really difficult, right? And if you give everybody a tiny little bonus, it loses its luster, right? So that's with the performance-based bonuses, and I do agree with the mayor. There are employees that go above and beyond, and they do deserve to be recognized. I just feel that the way that we're doing it with these small increases, and perhaps with this evaluation form, I don't feel like it has a huge impact. If you're taking $20-something thousand and splitting it up among all the employees, and I think that most of our employees are going to rate really well in this evaluation, because they are great employees.
Yeah, they go above and beyond, almost all of them.
Almost all of them do, exactly.
But ultimately, the evaluations, the immediate supervisor is the one that will be conducting them, right? But the check and balance is that will have to come through the chain of command to Tony and I will make the final decision on whether an evaluation is appropriate for each employee. So I don't foresee that they're all going to be, with the overall rating of exceptional. That is an evaluation form that has existed here, and I'm not 100% sure if it was adopted as part of the ordinance that was passed a few years back.
Right.
That created and outlined the parameters for the bonus program. But we can take another look at it if it's not tied to the ordinance.
I think that that's what the vice mayor was alluding to when he was asking about, the evaluation form and how many previous employees and had rated exceptional, or what the rating was, right? Just to kind of get an idea of what we would be looking at now. Am I right, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, historically, when you're evaluating, if you get a very poor, below average, you're not going to be employed anymore. So I'm assuming that most people are either rating, average to above average and exceptional. So just be curious if what the mayor's proposing actually gets the intended purpose through. Because if we're using just the rating system, and the rating system isn't, let's say everybody's exceptional, right? Then if I'm pretty sure you would say everyone's exceptional.
Right, then that brings us back to a COLA. It's
Right,
almost like it takes us all the way back to where.
Basically.
But even if, I'm going to give you guys an example. So COLA is, this COLA alone, maybe $20, $30 a paycheck, whatever. Just say, right now, this motion passes tonight, we would have close to $151,000 in performance bonuses. Just say everybody was exceptional. Everybody, like the manager says, they're all my children, they all get the same money. $3,775 each of them would get in a check this year. If they were all, like the manager says, they're all my children, they all get the same because they're my children. $3,775, they would every employee in town hall, if we had 40 employees, I think we have a little bit less, the 40 employees, $3,775. That is more that's more than the COLA, and that's a major chunk of change. but it also goes back to my major point, which gives us that major flexibility going forward. If we decide next year, we say, hey, it works, let's keep doing it, but just say everybody was the same, and 3,000, I just did the math right now, $3,775.
Right, but that would be giving equal bonuses to.
No, which I don't agree, but I think
right.
I'm gonna take a deep dive into the review sheets. I'm gonna look at what other cities do. I'm gonna between now and the next budget hearing, I'm gonna make that my own homework, and I'll work with the attorney on looking at different scenarios. But I'm just giving that as an example. $3,775 is way more than what our employees would be getting as a COLA, like way more. So, and that's if everybody was the same, but obviously not. So you're gonna have employees that'll get $2,000, some will get $5,000, you know what I mean? So, but then going into fiscal year next year, we're not hamstrung, right? We're not stuck with a recurring cost for every single year, another COLA next year. No, it gives us a flexibility, but we just awarded our staff a major bonus that they'll never get that amount of money in COLAs in 5-6 years, you know what I mean?
I agree with you, but it does keep our salaries uncompetitive as compared to other municipalities. And we do offer a lot of things. I mean, we promote from within, which is, it gives you the opportunity for growth. We do have the flexible Fridays, which I dislike, because when someone comes here on a Friday, half the time, the building is, a lot of people are not here when you want to address something on a Friday. So I've had residents call me and say, I went to the building and,
Yeah, I challenge that, because.
I've experienced it myself, where I've come here on a Friday in the summer and there's a lot of people that are not here. So, so I don't particularly like it,
Yeah.
but it's neither here nor there. It's something that the staff members like. But we do give them opportunities for growth. We don't necessarily, when there's a new position, we don't advertise it and bring in candidates from other municipalities and, and try to bring in talent from elsewhere. We promote more from within, which is something that's.
We try, if it works.
Right, so it's something that is nice for the staff members, right? So there's a lot of things that we do that make us, give us a little bit of an edge, even if salary-wise, we don't have that. But with the bonuses, I do agree with the manager that it keeps the salaries low, and if that's your base salary, next year your bonus might be gone, so you can never count on your bonus, because we can have a bad year and your bonus isn't there. So it kind of gives the employees, I think, a little bit less stability as far as
Yeah.
yes.
And council member, also one thing that hasn't been discussed is that for retirement purposes, right? Because us in the public sector, one of the benefits that we afford staff members, and it's also something that staff members, when they come into the public sector, is something that attracts them, right? So we provide them good health insurance, we provide them retirement at the end of the road, right? So that $20,000 employee 20 years later is still making $20,000 with the hope of someday retiring. The retirement is always going to be based on $20,000. So 20 years from now, today was a reasonable amount of $20,000, 20 years from now will be completely unreasonable. So one of the benefits is, because the bonus would not be pensionable, right? So COLAs would be rolled into the base salary, and those are pensionable wage increases. The bonus would not, especially like was mentioned already, that next year could be gone, right?
Right.
So.
Right. And the COLAs, I mean, I understand what you mean. If you projected 10 years into the future, we're, over $1 million in, but the COLAs can be not adopted in any given year. If we believe that we can't, or the budget doesn't allow it, we just remove it.
We can't remove, so what, if we passed, we already passed the 40-something thousand that we gave a year and a half ago. If we pass the 124 now, which is 170, we can't go back on it.
Right, we can't go
You just
backwards.
gotta build
We cannot build on it. We cannot pass another COLA, but we have to keep what we have.
The other thing too, in talking about salaries, and I saw our previous town manager do it, there were many times where a previous town manager would raise salary. When there was an employee who was doing really well, on his own, saw the merit and raised that employee's salary. You know what I mean? It shouldn't always be just based on a COLA for everybody. You know what I mean? There has to be more, and that's where I challenge our manager. You got an organization, there's no collective bargaining. It's very nimble, you can make different moves here, but going back to that, I just would love to see them come back. I'm gonna do my own due diligence going forward, but I do think, just looking at those rough numbers, $3,700, if we were to go everybody across the board the same, is a humongous amount of money. That's probably more than we'll ever give in COLAs going forward, you know what I mean? To
No,
just,
I completely understand, but I have mixed feelings on this one. I would like a little more information on it. If you do if you do a little bit of homework, I'd love for you to share.
I have an amendment.
yep, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor, because you're moving forward and putting the manager to come back to us with that would look like, I'd like to make an amendment of taking the totality of the money, splitting it half in COLA and half to also C. So we'd have two options, or at least see what that would look like reflected in the budget next time we revisit this item. So I make a motion to, when the manager comes back with all of the monies in performance budgets, to also bring back a table reflecting half of the monies in COLAs and the other half in performance pay pay.
I support the option of getting more options. Yeah, try to control yourself, Vice Mayor. But,
Yeah.
but I think what it sounds like, the mayor is going to defer the item altogether for the next meeting, and in between now and then, go ahead and do the research. So perhaps maybe what you're really trying to do is, just tell the manager to present that option along with whatever comes back.
No, I'm going to do the research on the ordinance that creates the performance system. This is the money. This is kind of like pushing the money in that direction.
Okay, so I may have lost some of that, but well, I'm going to make a motion to defer for now, just because listening to the vice mayor earlier when he was telling me, that I should get with the manager and get more information as far as the reasons why, some people are leaving the organization. I'd like to do my due diligence there. In the past, I think I've made my position very clear that I am not a fan of a de facto COLA, that is given every year, that, as you pointed out, increases our base budget, and then also is providing a protection to public employees, yes, but something not afforded to private employees, right? So philosophically, I'm just, usually COLA averse, and to the point that the councilwoman mentioned, or maybe it was you, Mr. Mayor, giving everybody a COLA as opposed to that's right, it was you, as opposed to administratively adjusting salaries to reward good work, adjusting base salaries to be more specific. I think that's a better way to go. And again, there were many years where we were able to retain great employees without doing a COLA. And I just don't want to get into a habit of every year, we feel obligated into doing a COLA. Now, as far as the money goes, maybe again, that's all I'm saying is maybe we don't have to make the decision tonight, and that's why I'm making the motion to defer. But again, knowing that at least I'm partial to your argument, let me put it that way.
There's a motion on the table by Councilman Dieguez to defer.
I'll second.
Discussion, is there a discussion on items?
Just to be clear, what are we deferring exactly?
The current motion, which is to allocate all of the money that is currently allocated for the COLA toward the merit retention program. And I think that this will give us time to go ahead and get more information so we can make a decision about the money, at the same time make a decision about how to structure the program.
I'm supportive of your motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I am opposed. 5-1. All right, I still got the floor. I had one more motion. It's more of a proviso language. So last year, we really worked hard on the budget. I remember one of the items that we, as a council, withdrew was the CIP manager. And one thing that was a pet peeve of mine was that I saw, the way that I found out this was even popping up, I just heard about it. Hey, you guys are advertising a CIP manager position. And I was like, the council never approved that. Then after the fact, staff came and brought it up. I respect it, whatever, it was a mistake. But I just want to add a proviso language for this budget cycle, making a motion that if the manager is to create any new positions, that it would need to go to the council for budgetary approval before it gets advertised.
Second.
Discussion. Councilwoman Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have we, in this particular budget, how many new staffing positions do we have?
One crossing guard.
One crossing guard is the only thing new that we
Right,
have.
that was a recommendation from the crossing guards, and one of your colleagues brought it to our attention, and we spoke to the crossing guards and confirmed, previous administrators of the crossing guard program confirmed that there was a need there at the K through 8 center to have another crossing guard, and that's the one and only new position. Other than the one that you've already approved, which was the CIP manager, we did bring it to this council, and the council did approve the CIP manager mid-year, when the stormwater bonds were approved. In the spirit of doing what this council asked us to do, which was to get a shovel in the ground as quick as possible, we moved forward as quick as possible to get that CIP manager on board, and we brought the budget amendment to you for the new position.
Okay, so on that note, and I had this on my notes from our previous meeting. I'm looking for my notes. Maybe I don't have it on these notes. That will be paid for out of the bond?
Correct. It's funded completely out of the stormwater program, the CIP manager.
Okay, and that is because I brought with me all of the new expenditures that we had, that we spoke about at our last meeting. All of these expenditures are in this budget?
I'm not sure which
I'm sorry,
expenditures you're talking
it was
about.
the list that the bullet points that you gave us the last time that we met.
I don't have that before me. Can you just tell me what are the items on there? I can.
Well, part of it is the COLA that we're discussing. There's town training budget for travel.
Yeah,
There's-
all of those things should be embedded into this budget unless you told us last time to get it out. Even though at the workshop, you couldn't take a
Correct.
vote, but if we saw enough heads shaking, then we made adjustments. But I don't believe that there were any, specific recommendations from the workshop to remove any of the items on that list.
Okay, because what the mayor's bringing up is something that I had noted also in my notes, but it is coming out of the stormwater bond.
Correct. The only reason that we're moving forward with that position, or that we hired that position and brought it before you for approval, was specifically because we were issuing the stormwater bonds, and the program was exponentially going to explode, and we needed the CIP manager for that program.
Okay, and as far as in the building department, do we have any new positions there? I know that we've revamped some things and we've changed some positions around.
Right, we're actually, I think it's 2 positions short, Danny? 2 positions, 3 positions less than last year
So we currently are budgeting for 3 less staff members than the year before.
in the building department.
In the
Right,
building
because
department.
of some efficiencies, like we've been talking about for the last several months, we redefined several positions, we reconfigured, the processes in there, and right now, we're funding 3 positions less than what we did last year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, and Councilman Ronald, one of the things too, and I brought up this item at council meetings back, before we make some of these hires too, I would love to see analysis of, going out for a contractor. For example, we know that our stormwater bond is not forever. One of the things I was even had told the manager before is that, hey, that's something we should analyze, bringing in maybe a contractor to help us through, because we know that is not something that's going to be here forever. You know what I mean? So, but let me say this, the person that got hired is amazing, is going to do a good job. I mean, I know people in the community that vouch, so it's not about her, it's about the process. For example, Director Angel, he went through this cycle right now, and through going through the contract basis, he saved $300,000 from the building department. You know what I mean? Those are the types of exercises that I would love to see every time that there's a vacancy. Go through that exercise. Even if like we did the ones for the sidewalk repairs, and Carlos came back and said, hey, it would cost more to have in-house. That's fine. But I know Danny did that recently. He saw that it would cost less and be more productive having contractors. My thing was that, hey, we went through so much pain during that budget cycle, during that I just would have liked it from the beginning. And there's something in this budget that I would like to see, just proviso language that come back, just bring it before us. It's not, you know what I mean? It's nothing.
I agree, and I
nothing
think
out of the
that's one of the things that set us apart, right? That we were a contract city, and that saved us a lot of money with regards to pensions and benefits and whatnot. Why is it that we didn't go the independent contractor route with this individual?
For the CIP manager, the forecast from the Public Works Director is that this program is going to probably take approximately 5 years. He also knew that we were going to have the American Rescue Plan money that was going to be following this, right? So the program may even go longer than that. So that plus there's more things that this engineer can do long-term with other grant projects, with other road projects, in addition to the stormwater. So the recommendation was for this to be a in-house person, and that was the recommendation, and I concurred. After the explanation that the director gave to me, I concurred that that was the better option, especially considering the staff person that was being recruited, and she's proven to be everything that we had hoped for.
Right. I do have to agree with the mayor on this one, though. It kind of binds us to an employee that we are hiring long-term, that we're hiring as a staff member, that we're going to love and that we're going to want to keep. And that's not the intention, right? The intention is to have someone to come in and work on these projects and then bid them farewell when the projects are done. So I know that the last time the person that we had hired was hard for everyone, right? To kind of close off a position and remove it from the budget. It seems difficult for us, right? Because we become very, very bonded with our staff members. So in the future, I agree with the mayor. I'd like to see more independent contractors hired for these.
Yeah, the previous CIP manager was a contract staffer, right? Was not an employee. So with that, there was a lot of criticisms internally and externally about how many hours, how much she was getting paid, or how could she get paid this much for all these things. So the need for a CIP manager has existed there even before I got here. We had one, right? And there was an exorbitant amount of money that was used for that CIP manager, and that was a criticism. So we believe that we had much more control if the need was there, it's going to be a perpetual need. We had much more control having an in-house person that we can control. We know what the exposure is going to be. That's why the decision was made to make that transition. If you remember, initially a year or two ago, when the CIP manager that was here by contract was leaving, we were trying to make a recommendation to go with an in-house person. It didn't. That's when the budget exploded because the FP&L franchise fee, that was one. Obviously, that was an option that was thrown out the window early on because it was an empty spot. We abolished that contract CIP manager and didn't fill it. But now we believe that there's going to be a perpetual need for an in-house person at that quality that we can have control over, and it won't be a spigot that'll be exorbitant and expose all of us to internal and external criticism.
Right, and I mean I can identify with that thought, but then when we approve something as part of a contract or as part of a project, it doesn't. At least what I understood was not that it was going to be a perpetual need. I thought that it was going to be someone that was going to handle the stormwater, and then that was it. I didn't realize that I was approving a permanent employee. I don't know if anybody else thought that, or if I was the only one that misunderstood that, but I thought that it was for the term of the stormwater projects, and then. Well,
maybe in our briefing I didn't explain myself well enough. I'll take, but I mean, we never hid that. We made it obvious. We even talked about the person we were planning to hire. It was very overt, the fact that it was going to be a new employee.
Right, but no, I understand that part, but at least I understood it to be for the stormwater project.
Yeah,
so in essence, what we did was that we approved a new employee perpetually.
Your thought process is correct, Councilwoman. The manager's saying it's coming out of stormwater. We know the stormwater fees are not going to be here forever, so it's going to get reverted at some point to the general fund and become. So no, your thought process is on point on that. Any further discussion on this, Council, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I think philosophically I agree with what you're saying, but I'm not going to support the item. With one tongue, we're telling the manager, give people raises, empower him to go ahead and make compensation and remuneration based on performance. And then here we're saying, before you make any moves, check down with us. So I think this has a lot to do with confidence in the manager. And while I appreciate what you're trying to do, which is protect the budget and the longevity and secure the town, I think we hired him for this reason, you know, to make these judgment calls. And I think if we're going to micromanage him and have him check down with us on these types of decisions, I think we're going to hamstring it. And I think your motion is sending a broader message that I don't want our manager to receive at this time. So.
Do it anyways. So that's, no, I get it. I appreciate it. Any further discussion on this, council? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One no, Madam Clerk, the motion passes. I don't have any other comments. I will be voting in favor of this tonight because everything got deferred, but I would like to see how this all shakes up at our next budget hearing. Any further motions regarding the budget in first reading, council? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the budget ordinance as amended.
Ordinance in first reading, item 11B. Councilmember Diegues.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruano.
No.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Collazo.
Yes.
Mayor Sid.
Yes.
The motion passes 11B.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. What is the next? I don't have an agenda in front of me. I got to look at the Vice Mayor's agenda. If you can, any other items?
That's what I'm here for, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The town attorney, I think, had a report.
Yeah,
tonight.
Mr. Mayor, in the meantime, we've had some discussions with Councilman Diegues and stuff. We will come back to you on Tuesday with some proposals regarding a sign code. The Gilbert case, a while back, I came to, not this present council, but a prior council, with a sign code. There's a case called Gilbert versus, I forget who.
Versus Reed, I believe.
Gilbert versus Reed. It's a U.S. Supreme Court case where 9 justices came up with 6 separate opinions and so have really made it difficult to navigate what is constitutional as far as signs are concerned. Essentially, the test that the Supreme Court has come up with is if you have to read it to regulate it, that's a violation of free speech. That's a very short synopsis. So right now, I think as the Supreme Court's ruling stands, our sign code and many others will not pass constitutional muster. We can't continue on, in my opinion, with a sign code that doesn't pass constitutional muster and then trying to enforce certain of the provisions which become an issue. It's a big concern for us, and it puts our staff in a very delicate position as to what to do. So I think we should try and take another stab at that. In all candor, a previous council, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, didn't want to take any action, but I think we should. Exactly.
Are you referring to signage on private property or on public rights-of-way?
Mostly private property, but signage on rights-of-way, meaning speed limits and all that, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Private property.
I'm talking on private property, how many, lighted signs, what the signs can say, when they can stay up, the size. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways to go about this, and we just want to be careful.
I have a motion to make at this time. The motion is based on something we all may have become aware of through Facebook or through other channels. There are some present cases that are proceeding on enforcement related to political signs, although there's some ambiguity as to whether a flag constitutes a sign. I would argue that regardless, we're running a dangerous risk here. So I'd like to move to have a temporary moratorium in place for up to 3 months on any enforcement action related to political signs and symbols. The reason being to give the attorneys, even though he's saying he's going to get us a draft by next Tuesday, I have a feeling we're going to need more time to workshop that.
I mean, some proposals, some guidelines, some areas to think about, something to chew on, let's just say.
Thank you. So that's why I would move for at least 3 months for us to be able to finalize this while they, put them on hold while we finalize this new code.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion, council, any discussion? I do have discussion. Councilman Dieguez, maybe this is a question to the attorneys, but in the future, do you think, and Mr. Attorney, do these items actually, when you guys believe that something is unconstitutional or something is, do you actually have to wait to ask council for our direction, or these are things that you circulate based on your opinions to the manager, to the clerk, to the folks that are your colleagues, to your bosses on the dais? Because what I don't want to happen going forward is that if you guys have an issue with something that staff is enforcing or something like these things need to get nipped in the bud, because if not, we're the ones accountable. And I want to make that very clear again. The buck stops here, and we're the ones that get the emails. I know I got several emails. We're the ones, so I want to make sure you guys understand that very clearly. You guys are colleagues, but at the same time, you have to, have that type of communication.
A couple of issues. First of all, we rarely have an issue of constitutionality or enforcement or something like that. I mean, rarely. Especially because we don't run the police department, so to speak. Rarely has any of this come up. I believe staff is in a predicament. We have a sign code, but the Supreme Court is saying certain things can't be done. Well, is what they're doing violative of the Gilbert versus Reed case? Well, this is all kind of questionable. I tend to support the motion on that issue, but I can't think of a case where, I'm sitting here saying, hey, you can't do that, and someone from staff has jumped up. I don't care, I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, but the Gilbert case has been out for a very long time now. I mean, this is not new news, right? So,
No.
Those are things that, let's nip it in the, because ultimately we're the face of the town. I mean, that's just a reality.
Right, but I think he was clear. He said we failed to take action 4 years ago.
I wholeheartedly agree, but those are things, man, that you have as the attorneys the authority to put moratoriums on stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, you put it before the council to pass an ordinance. You wanted us to pass an ordinance, the size of the flags, the size of signs, what gets interpreted, what gets not interpreted. So that's why I'm in favor of the motion, but that goes down into a deeper path that's actual code. It's not what the legality is.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. And one of the things I'd like to say is one of the good things about working here in Town Hall is that the manager and I have good communication. I get to walk into his office, ask him questions. He gets to walk into my office, ask me questions. We don't always agree, but we try to work together and bring the matters before you so that you guys can give us the direction that we need.
Got it. I'm in favor. Councilwoman Ruano?
Thank you. These I guess arguments or these things tend to come up during election season, and usually they kind of go away, right? So we're significantly past our last election, and we still have lingering signage. Is that?
Not that I can see. Not that I can. There was one issue with one sign, which has kind of brought it back up, and I really think it's time for the council to enact a sign ordinance in accordance with that meets the requirements of the Supreme Court.
Because during the previous election, it was a very hot topic, and I think it comes up more than anything for associations, where HOAs also have regulations, and then
that is different. Associations aren't government. Associations, if they meet their internal rules or their covenants, their declaration of condominium, whatever it is, they can enact rules that are more restrictive than the Gilbert case.
Right, but even then, there's limits on what you can restrict. So maybe because most of our homes are within associations, some of those things don't end up coming up before us, right?
But some of the associations don't have sign restrictions and things like that. Not every association has, the requirements for signs. I would say the vast majority do, but we've got sections of the town where the associations are disbanded.
If I may also jump in
Yes.
as the secondary legal department, along with my colleague, Councilmember Rodriguez, there is cases that have struck down association codes that restrict signage because they ultimately rely on the government power to enforce their declarations, right? That's why you have.
Foreclosures, lien foreclosures.
But for example,
taking
the
their
racial
property, I agree.
declarations, right? The restrictions that were put on some properties that were based on race were eventually struck down in large part because they were associations, even though they were private entities, were relying on the government's power in order to enforce them. So similarly here, yeah, we can't maybe tell an association, you know, you can't regulate this, but ultimately, I guarantee you, if they were challenged by a member of the association, yeah, you know, but again, there's still, the attorney is 100% correct in saying that we still need to pass our own code that passes constitutional muster, so we don't have an issue. But as far as what the associations do, yeah, we don't have direct control over them as a private entity, but if a member of their association were to challenge them in court, I'm fairly confident they would win, depending on what regulation they were challenging, and whether it was content-based, especially if it was political content or religious content, you know, that they probably would, you know, likely be struck down in that case.
Any further discussion on this, council? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you all. Have a good night, and this meeting is adjourned.